Okay, what's up, everybody?
How's it going?
How we doing, y'all? It's episode 6 time.
I believe it is episode 6.
6 weeks. That's pretty cool.
It is.
Another episode of Coach's Corner with Justin and Ethan. I'm Justin Schollard.
And I'm Ethan Wolf.
And we are
the coaches in your corner.
Coach's Corner. Yeah. Wow. Six weeks already, man.
I know.
It's pretty cool.
It's just integrated into the days now.
I think it's very on point to what we're going to be talking about today, of just like pushing through and just committing to showing up and doing your best and being consistent.
Yep, I just did it with the workout just now.
Did you want to work out?
Not at all.
Did you do it anyways?
I did.
That's adulting.
It was.
Yeah.
I kept it short. I did 2 movements, but really went there with them.
Just 1 rep each?
Just one really hard rep. 25 minutes of warm up, 1 rep each.
Yep. Boom.
But it was only the 2 movements, but I did them last week, and I was stronger than I was last week. I outperformed how I was last time. So I know that there's progress happening, even if it's just the 2 movements. Felt good.
What'd you do?
I did a combination of we're going to say a toe squat, which is kind of like if you're on a slant board, letting your knees move very far forward.
You did a reel about that not too long ago.
And then you kind of take that into like what a sissy squat, I think, is where your knees touch the floor. So kind of a little 2-part movement there. Hits the quads a little bit.
Yeah.
And then supersetted that or went right into weighted lunges for 20 reps or 10 per leg walking.
It's quad day.
Quad and hip day for sure. Got up to 40
pounds. So
pounds.
that's 3 movements.
Well, it's only all 1 movement for the first one.
Okay.
It's like you go down, heels come up, knees come forward, then you like lean back, touch your knees to the floor.
Ooh.
It's kind of like a modified sissy squat.
Is it a tough sissy squat?
It was very tough.
It was a tough sissy.
But those actually felt a lot easier. But yeah, so did that, hit the 40s last week, or hit the 40s this week, which I didn't do last week. Did that for 20 instead of 16. And then I did weighted dips, which also felt strong. And I even was like, I'll do 1 or 2 with 40 pounds and pulled off a set of 8.
Dope.
Which was my working weight with 20 before my working numbers. So.
Yeah,
feeling good.
That's good. That's good. I actually skipped yesterday. I know. Actually, no. What am I talking about? I worked out yesterday. No, I skipped the day before that because I was just sore and beat up, and like I started doing jiu-jitsu and.
Well, yeah, that'll.
Man, just like you tumble and you grapple enough, and back is just like achy, and you're just like, you know what? Today I'm just gonna listen to my body and not.
And so there's a lot of impact.
Yeah.
Well, why that all pertains is because today we're going to kind of talk about, we had a couple names, but I guess like what it really takes. Mm-hmm. One of the titles we're working with is the skill of fitness, maybe, but just what the difference is, or what the expectation is of what it takes to really be a fit individual.
Right.
To live that lifestyle, so to speak.
Yeah, like there's 20% of people who are committed and they look at fitness as a part of their life that they want to develop and grow in, and it's a hobby and it's a skill set that they're trying to acquire. And then you have like 80% of people who they're kind of like more like general population. They're doing the class pass. They go to a boot camp on a Friday, and like, listen, I think that's okay. I think, like we talked about other episodes, anything's better than nothing.
Yeah, anything. I'll condone movement all the time, no matter what.
But most people, especially if you're watching this or listening to this show, you want to take your fitness to the next level, and you don't want to just be, generally healthy. I mean, you do want to be generally healthy, but you also want to look like you train.
Yeah. And
you want to look like you exercise. At least that's always something I wanted to have. I always felt like I was like, man, I trained so hard. Why don't I look the same way I feel, And it's not until you cross that threshold, take complete ownership over it, and almost like, allow yourself to go through the process where you don't need other people now. You have this skill set. You have this identity that you have with yourself.
Yeah. One of my favorite quote, which I know isn't universally applicable, but it was a favorite of mine. It was, appearance is a consequence of fitness. Mm-hmm. Right. And so we often have these aesthetic goals, but I think really if you were to kind of just focus on how fit you are, not the aestheticism or the aesthetics, excuse me. I'm combining athleticism and aesthetics with a lisp.
It's a new word. It's athleticism.
Aestheticism.
Listen, this isn't perfect, folks.
Well, and I think I kind of no,
We're flawed men here.
but to a point, something you were talking about was that no one's going to do it for you. As an idea of, I think, one of the mentalities that you have to take to kind of go a little deeper.
Yeah. We run a coaching program, and you coach too. You have a studio, you're in person, I'm online. We're both coaching people. And I think that sometimes people hire coaches thinking that their job's done now.
Right.
Like, okay, great. I got my coach, I got my trainer, whatever, my nutritionist. Like, great, done. But it's like, what you're doing is you're signing up for more work because no one can do this for you.
Yeah.
You have to take complete ownership over this. And all the coaching is going to do is just make sure that you don't chase a shiny object off to Pluto and waste a year of your life. It's going to keep you directed, but fundamentally, there's no such thing as a done for you plan.
Yeah.
You have to be the one that puts the game plan into action.
For sure. Well, I think coaching makes it efficient, right? It's going to be an efficient way to walk the path because you're relying on the, knowledge and expertise of the coach, so that the work that you inevitably have to choose to do, will at least be effective. But fundamentally, you have to do it. It's to that point.
Right.
God, you can't get away.
I think that's the thing, right? It's like, it's this frustration tolerance. And so something like we were preparing for this episode, and I was just kind of jotting down some notes. I'm thinking about okay, really what we're talking about is consistency in a way.
I would say that, yeah. 100%.
There's an element of definitely inconsistency, because inconsistency is going to kill you at every turn,
right,
no matter what you're trying to do in life.
For sure.
But then it's like, okay, well then why? What is the big issue with people being consistent? And obviously, I'm not a psychotherapist, but what I can tell you is when I think about my own business, my own coaching practice, it's like people quit at the point of frustration. Is basically about where most people's tolerance threshold gets them to about the point where they're frustrated.
Yeah.
And then they quit. It also just so happens that anything in life worth doing is going to be frustrating.
Yeah, most often. Any learning process, anything, is going to have hurdles and, falling down kind of a thing. Yeah. Frustration tolerance was very, very cool to me. I thought that was a really good way of looking at things.
Right. And it's almost like your ability, like the extent to which you can tolerate that frustration is probably the extent that you're going to acquire that skill, and vice versa. So
right,
we all have our own areas in life where we start something, feel that fear of inadequacy or imposter syndrome or overwhelm,
yeah,
or all of it.
Yeah, just looking at the thing and just getting the sweaty palms.
And we go, fuck it.
Yeah, so much easier.
I'd rather just stay in my comfort zone.
It's comfortable there. It's warm, safe.
But you know what, Ethan? There's no growth in your comfort zone.
There is
did
no
you know
growth.
that?
I did.
Have you ever heard
growth
it before?
Is at the edge of comfort. Or it's at the edge of comfort.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But it's true.
Right. So it's like, if you're going to break out of the plateau that you're in physically, psychologically, socioeconomically, you have to tolerate the frustration while you're acquiring the skill necessary to become the version of yourself that you say you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so that's basically accepting really it's like process orientation.
Yeah. The process is the reward, is one of my clients. Justin knows, but there's a client of mine of 12 years, good old John Costry.
Oh, John.
He's like, the process is the reward.
Sweet Johnny.
Process is the reward. He's just chanting away. And it's true, right? Because I think it's so easy to get destination oriented. I want to look a certain way. I want to lose this many pounds. And really the mentality of, if you can get there, of this moment right here, right now, is the reason and the why. Just show up and do it. Yep.
Because when you think about success and it's like a rival syndrome too. It's like this idea that you have to get somewhere, but anybody who has gotten to the place that you're trying to reach, they're just on to the next thing. And so you realize the thrill, the reward, the payoff, we think that it's going to be when we arrive, quote unquote, or achieve the thing. But then you realize that it's an infinite spiral staircase where every rung of that staircase looks the same as it did 1,000 feet below.
Yeah.
And you think that your life is going to be so much better once you've achieved this platitude in your mind. But then once you get there, you keep looking up and you realize there's 1,000 people ahead of you still. And it's just this infinite game of life where if you can just accept that. Now, that doesn't, I think you can take that both. I think sometimes you can interpret that as like nihilism. Well, what's the point of even trying then?
Right. Well, no, it's just the fractal paradox of life, baby.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because, which I think we could get into, and we'll get into a little bit later, but I kind of talking about identity and the whys and that kind of stuff and what fulfillment really looks like, because I could easily be a nihilist and say, fuck it, I don't get it. What's the point, And then you kind of find yourself feeling blasé and not feeling also like you're living your fullest life. And then you realize that you might have to do some work and put some effort into things to get the life that you kind of want. And, you kind of start to find that meaning in the choices you make, in a sense.
When, the reason, I think the irony is, of course, that the reason why people start something is because they're frustrated with their current state.
Yeah, something has to give.
Right? They realize they're in their comfort zone. They realize they're not growing. They realize they're stagnant and they're declining. Their health is declining. Their sex drive is declining. Their relationships are declining. So they're like, I got to do something about this.
Right, or they're inspired too, right? They see somebody with a nice, their friend that got into shape, and they're like got that little twinkle, the little firework inside. They're like, oh, I want that too.
Totally. No, that's true. I guess people can be inspired sometimes too.
It's possible.
but I think what it does is the inspiration exposes a deficit.
Yeah.
So if I see somebody who inspires me, it's because I'm like, man, I want that for myself, right? I believe that I can accomplish that too. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, there's some pain point there that I want to improve, and so this is always the question that we get. Sometimes I have to have conversations with people who want to finish or cancel, let's be honest, their program early because they're like, it's just too hard, or I can't stick with it. I'm being inconsistent. I'm just too busy, or whatever this issue is. And I'm like, but wasn't that the reason you started this in the first place? Because you just couldn't live like this anymore. You have no energy. You're exhausted. You don't feel, you're super self-conscious around other people. You don't even want to take group photos. You don't want to travel. You're not living your life. So it stands to reason that the delta between where you are and the version that you want to be, which, by the way, in fitness, we're talking probably within a calendar year for most people.
Yeah, I would say so.
This isn't some 10-year freaking...
No, and I think even horizon. The year is probably longer than they would like to think it will take, but that's still... But then years go by.
Yeah, but then they get right up to that point where it's not everyone, but a lot of folks get up to that point where it's this is hard, this is frustrating, and it's the devil sometimes is better than the devil you don't. And even though this area that they've been stuck in is so painful and so traumatic and not fun, the effort required to ascend to get to this place that they know they're going to be happy, it challenges your resolve. It's do you actually want this or not? And that journey from where you are to where you want to be is your rite of passage.
Yeah. It's
you proving and you sticking your flag in the ground saying no, I'm doing this and I'm going to become this person. And that is that acquisition phase of the skill sets required to be the version of yourself that you want to become.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's things we always talk about is you have to put action. Actions speak louder than words. It's the same of no amount of thinking will do it, right?
Yep.
You have to act, and those actions are the things that define us most of the time, and those really are the hard parts. And we've talked about in previous episodes, right, where that rubber meets the road, changing the habits, whatever it is, that day in and day out of different actions is definitely challenging. It's that's where you're literally carving the marble of the new person that you're going to be, because when you do something consistently enough to make changes in some way, that means you've kind of morphed into a new version of yourself, And there's a quote that you were saying that kind of just came out. It was results are on the other side of frustration. And then if you want to share the other quote, which I thought the one that you shared, which I thought was even better with the magic.
Oh, yes. The magic you seek is in the work you're avoiding.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. The magic you seek.
And you can also say the life you seek.
Yeah. Well,
The freedom you seek.
Yeah, because I think the magic is good though, because I think we often do look at the thing that sparkles in a sense, the good body, the ability to take vacations because of enough income, or whatever it is, right? A healthy relationship. You know, I think those are all things that seem worth going for, right? A magical treasure.
It is worth going for.
It is,
it's and it's. I was diagnosed with ADD when I was a kid, and I was like literally the kid that would get what were you saying? So I was paying attention. I get called into the principal's office to take his Ritalin, and it was always like mortifying for me. And it's interesting because now, however many years later, it's still a problem for sure, but they're also finding that like it can be harnessed. You can channel that for good if you're aware of it, because you hyperfixate, you borderline obsess, and I think that probably ADD is the cousin of bipolar in a lot of ways, because you can feel yourself like getting like hyper focused and obsessed on certain topics. And I say that because to the point that the magic you seek is in the work you're avoiding. Another side effect of ADD, or a symptom of ADD, is fixating on things that don't actually move the needle in your life forward. And I think that ADD isn't a binary where you have it or you don't, but a continuum of just kind of how much. And I think that diabetes, metabolic disease in general, everything is always a continuum of just how much, not a light switch of whether you have it or not. But I can speak to the ADD because, I'm technically diagnosed with it, but like I find that in myself of just, this podcast is a good example. There is a moment where I had to stop myself from, I've watched enough YouTube videos on how to start a podcast now.
Y'all got the framework.
I gotta just do it.
Outside of the reps, right? Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Like I got the mics.
If I watch a couple more, once I hit record, it'll all be perfect.
And and I think fitness is analogous. And since I think that we all have an attention deficit to some degree with things that are just inherently hard. We want to avoid difficult things. Yep. Sitting here, recording ourselves talk is hard. Yep. Coming up with topics, researching these things, making it happen, it's difficult. But so is fitness, and so is nutrition, and so is health. And so it's like we have to just catch ourselves being distracted and watching too many fitness YouTube videos and not actually fucking doing the workouts. And then just realize that the learning is in the doing.
100%.
And just starting and not waiting.
And that reminds me of that choose your hard kind of thing.
Yes.
Right? It's hard being broke. It's hard saving money. Choose your hard. Right? It's hard to have a healthy relationship and talk about your feelings and be vulnerable. And it's hard being lonely or being in a toxic relationship. Yeah. Right? It's hard being overweight and having metabolic disease, and it's fucking hard to bust your ass in the gym and eat well. So, I think it's sometimes we have to like shift in that perspective, because it might not be hard to like sit on your couch and eat mac and cheese, but that's eventually going to lead to a hard situation. And so I think for a lot of it too, I think is like knowing what to expect, like to have an understanding that it's going to have some frustrating or difficult moments, that the work that holds the magic is going to be just that work. It's not like you're going to go to the gym and be like, yeah, I love like grinding out exercise.
Just getting really uncomfortable.
Yeah. And like, just putting myself through grueling workouts that's just, I can't wait. It's like, that's not sitting down and crunching numbers. It's not going to be fun. Whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
Meal prep isn't going to be like, oh boy, can't wait to do some meal prep.
Especially because it's a lagging indicator. I mean, just, you can work out for months before you actually see the benefit of it.
And look, you can sweeten the deal. You can put on a good song while you do your meal prep and dance around your kitchen a little bit and make it a little more enjoyable. You can put some good music or find a good workout buddy or an activity you really like to make the exercise component more enjoyable. But it's always going to be something that you're probably going to rather not do in some way.
I think that's what we were talking about on a couple episodes ago of like linking habits together. Like taking a call while you're on a walk. Listening to your favorite Coach's Corner podcast while you're cooking. linking your favorite habits together.
It's
But
true.
but I think that is interesting, and it brings us to an interesting topic of just like where the rubber meets the road, and just like accepting the idea that most of the time you're not going to want to do the hard work, right?
Yeah.
Like we're just not going to want to do it. There's been 1,000 books written about this stuff, but we can read it, we can understand it conceptually, but the tacit understanding of it comes through experiencing it for yourself.
Yeah.
And when you earlier today were about to do your workout, I'm sure there was a moment where you thought, maybe not.
Well, yeah, I'd already kind of fucked around for 15 or 20 minutes. And then I had little less and less time, and it was going to that place where it was almost not enough time.
Like you were just like hanging around the gym, but not actually doing the work.
Yeah, use the bathroom. I was like, I've dicked around my phone for a second.
Right.
Next thing I know, it's like 15, 20 minutes have gone by, and then I'm like, well, now I only have like 35 minutes for my workout before I need to eat, bite real quick, and then head over here. And so it was almost like I self-handicapped, whereas like if I had waited another 10 minutes, that probably would have overcome me actually doing it, because I'm like, well, now maybe I can only do my lunges, which I might have done. But I was able to, again, that's why I only did the 2 movements. I was able to squeeze something worthwhile in, but I was right on that precipice. And so that voice was creeping right in there. I just like, you got a really long day today. Maybe you can just conserve your energy and hang out. But I overcame.
The more you overcome, the easier the next one is.
100%. Yeah.
And the opposite's also true, where the more you succumb to it, the harder the next one is.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had a client recently ask me, and he's fairly new to exercising, and he's young, and he's height weight proportionate. He does, he's kind of doing it because he wants to look good, and he's putting in his work. He grinds when he's there for sure. He does what I tell him, but like he definitely does not like it. He does not like it. And he asked me, I think just on Tuesday, do I like working out?
Like asked you personally?
Yeah, like right there, like finished a set and was like, that did not like. Clearly, he did not like it. Like it was just very uncomfortable. And, he's kind of a little more, likes the finer things in life, a little more, I think, not used to discomfort in his life otherwise. And
not a whole lot of calluses on his hands,
he's probably, and I think he understands that that's what has to happen. But he's like, looked at me and was just like, do you like working out? Like, what the fuck is up with this? This sucks. And I was like, it's a hard thing to say because there are hundreds of times where that grueling moment feels terrible because it's really hard, especially if you're pushing yourself and you're really looking to hit it and do it right. But that is interesting because in that workout today, because I think it was shorter and because I could feel myself being stronger compared to last week, like when I was doing those lunges, which are really hard, I really pushed myself, they were excruciatingly difficult. But because I've been doing them for like, I think 4 weeks now, 5 weeks, there's this little fire inside of me that loves the feeling of that I'm doing this stronger and easier than last week. And so it's still really hard, but I did more reps with more weight, and the perceived exertion was less than last week, right? So maybe it was a 9.3 last week, and maybe it was like an 8 today or an 8.5. And that little thing, because I've been doing it more and more, and because it's becoming more accessible, felt good, right? And so it's like it was still really hard. That moment in time was still very difficult. But I do think, to your point, you're saying, as you continue to do it and you continue to integrate it, there is this little light at the end of the tunnel that can be invigorating, particularly with weight training, I'll say.
Totally. Adaptation, you can when you start to feel and see the adaptation in your body from the stimulus of exercise, then you start to think of it as this big, huge, heavy flywheel. At first, it's like everything you got to get this huge flywheel spinning, and then the more you get it, the momentum of this mass basically just takes care of itself. But sometimes that process of getting that flywheel spinning on its own takes a while.
Yeah.
And that's tough. People just go forget it. But yeah, it's but then it's addicting. And then you just crave it. And then you can't even imagine your life without it. And that's usually the story of all these things that are hard. It's like once you finally just get past that initial gauntlet and you're on the other side of things, you can't imagine your life without it.
Yeah.
And you're like, I have to exercise. Like if I don't eat vegetables, I feel like shit. If I don't drink enough water, I can feel it.
I don't cook my own food.
You become more sensitized. Like before, when it's just a malaise and just like a, just a blunt force sort of approach to life, and like my sleep schedule is all over the place. Maybe some days I drink water, maybe some days I don't. Maybe some days I don't even eat protein or vegetables. It's like your body in like a survival way adapts to that normal, and you don't even know. You're like, I don't know. I just feel like promo shit. But then like once you actually become a little bit healthier, you pull back on the processed food, you get your sleep schedule tight, you drink roughly the same amount of water every day, you're hitting proteins. Now it's all of a sudden like you go a day without it and you feel the difference, and you've become so much more aware and in tune with your body that you'll never understand until you just get through that initial process, that starting phase.
Yeah, it's like in chaos. Like if you had like a really messy room, just like shit everywhere, you know, one extra little thing out of place is going to be really not probably noticed at all. But if you had a room that's meticulously put together and there's like a shirt on the floor, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. So I think once we start to create some like order and the effects that the order comes, you know, the order, so to speak, you know, creates in our life, then we notice if we get a bad night's sleep or if we don't drink enough water. We're like, oh shit. But if it's all just chaos in the first place, you know, it's not going to happen. Well, it's interesting because I think it comes down to you start to be a different person, right? Your identity starts to change. And I think you said in the beginning of like, you have to take this as like a hobby, right? Because I also have a client I just started with who's really dedicated on a weight loss mission and just to be in shape. First time ever doing any of this. And he's like, this is my new hobby. He's like, I used to do like X, Y, and Z. And he's like, now this is my hobby. And he's watching, you know, TikTok videos on exercise. He's coming in. He's like, progressive overload. I'm like, oh, how do you know that word?
Yeah.
Yeah, but but it's interesting because now this is his hobby. He's learning about macronutrients. So it's on his own time because he's taken it as part of his identity now.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of a big difference of like, okay, yeah, you might get a trainer because you know that's what you need to do and you'll never do it on your own. And you're showing up, which is the most important thing, because obviously if you never show up, it'll never happen. But then if you're not like taking on the want, the real internalization of the process, it's not that you won't get results, but I think there does have to be like an identity and the idea of like a hobby being something that you choose and that you're interested in and that you consciously say yes to include in your life.
And allowing yourself to imagine your life and how good it can be with this being healthy, because it's very easy to sink down to your lowest common denominator. Next thing you know, everyone in your life that you associate with is also in the same place you are, and it's just, you know, communally accepted. And it makes it harder then for you to break out from the herd because the inertia and the gravitational pull of people we surround ourselves with is so strong. But if you can just allow yourself to just imagine and form that why of what this would be like. Why are we doing this? Like, okay, you want to lift weights. Why?
Right.
Because I want to be stronger. Why? Because I feel weak. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to the core of it. So it's like, I think there's some thing, it's like, if you can get to the core of anything with 5 whys. What are your 5 whys? So, you know, I want to build muscle. Why?
Right.
I want to lose 50 pounds of fat. Why?
Why, yeah.
Just keep asking yourself why, and you'll allow your mind to just connect the dots, and you'll get to the core of it all.
Pulling the onion layers back. That's very cool.
Then once you know, now you got to get your ass off the couch and get to the gym and actually do it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's you know, having these conversations can be humbling, because I'm thinking about the areas in my life that I could show up better to. Because I think like fitness and eating well and taking care of my body physically, for the most part, is something I've stayed with for most of my middle to adult life. And so I have a confidence, not that I'm always perfect or it doesn't wax or wane, but that I feel good about that, which is nice. It's like, okay, I've got my health pretty much in check, but there are other areas of my life where I could definitely like look and reflect on, where I'm like, ooh, okay. Ooh. And it's scary, you know, it's a little interesting to look and be like, okay, wow, like there's a shadow there, you know, because we're talking about these things. And it's easy to be like, oh yeah, fitness, good, got it. But then if I'm actually like extrapolating it out, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should look at that as my hobby. I haven't done that yet. The hard thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once you understand once you get to the core of sort of, whatever the gray areas are in our life that we are avoiding, right? So first it's like the avoidance of it, and then, okay, so now I'm aware of it.
Yep.
And then it's like getting to the core of the why and trying to get out of the superficial shallows and get into the depth of like what is actually motivating you. And then just like having that intention, that pure intention of like, okay, I see where I want to be, and now just getting up and putting one foot in front of the other and just taking action. And like we were talking about the other day, like it's so cliche, all these things we're saying, but there are also some real truth there of just the secret to success is just starting.
It is.
It's just starting.
Yeah.
But then also, what I struggle with is making sure you follow through, because everyone can start, like everyone is a professional starter and an amateur finisher. Like no one pushes through to the end, and we just have to see that in ourselves. And I think take less things on.
Yep.
Don't overwhelm yourself with so many options. Keep it fucking simple. Advanced people do the basics.
Absolutely.
Like
the fundamentals, man.
When we would watch, when Ethan and I, when we owned that CrossFit gym together, well, who was it? Oh yeah, my God, you're wearing the shirt right now. That's so funny. That's awesome. Rich Froning was like the it boy. Froning.
Oh, yeah.
Rich Froning was like the it boy of CrossFit. They would film his workouts. Guess what? Like the 5-time fittest man in the world was doing squats,
yeah.
bench press,
Yep.
box jumps, burpees.
Yeah. He
was doing them heavier and faster than you and I could ever do it.
Yeah, but I also remember about this like somebody was getting the opportunity to train with. I wish I knew the basketball. It was like LeBron James or one of the greats of all time, and basically it was like, okay, you could like train with him in the morning. It was kind of like this like interview basketball person that was all about that, but we had this great opportunity, and they're like, all right, he's gonna be there at like 4:45 in the morning or some ridiculous, like 5 in the morning, and he's like, holy shit, he's gonna be there at 5 in the morning. And so he's like, okay, cool, I'll meet you for morning practice. And then apparently the player was like, okay. He gets there at 5 or 4:45 in the morning, and he had already been there for an hour and a half. Because once he knew that he was going to have to be participating with somebody else and doing this interview, he had to get his practice in. And so when he finally got there, he's like, so man, what are you doing every day in the morning like this? And he's just practicing fundamentals, like literally step, shot, just, I don't know that much about basketball, but they were talking about how he's just sitting there drilling the fundamentals for hours every day.
That reminds me of I just saw a very similar thing with Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm.
All-time point scorer, I think, in NBA history or something. NBA players might butcher me on this, but we can all agree he's prolific. So he practices 500 shots a day. That's 3,000 shots a week.
Yeah.
That is 150 or 160,000 shots a year he's practicing.
Yeah,
he's only taken a few thousand in his whole career.
Right.
And he's the number one scorer in the league. And so
he's not sitting there with like a calibrated computer tracking his arm movements or just, it's just do the simple. It's the simple thing.
It's just the basics,
just
right?
The basics, yeah.
And anyways, I think that's the big takeaway, and I think that's what I see, going wrong with a lot of folks who struggle with starting and stopping, and so they think, and then it turns into this like false sense of accomplishment because they think that because for the last decade they've done 20 different programs and they've started and stopped 20 different programs, it gives you this false sense of accomplishment and proficiency, but it's like people can get a chip on their shoulder like, well, I've been doing this for 10 years. It's like, well, no, you actually haven't. You've done the same thing that you've repeated for 10 years straight, which is start something, get to the point of frustration, then quit.
Right.
Which is usually about 6 weeks. Back of the napkin math is from my experience is 6 to 8 weeks is when the honeymoon phase is over.
Yeah.
The shine is off the apple.
Yeah.
The motivation is over. By the way, motivation's for fucking amateurs. Show me a pro who's motivated. You just do the work because you have to. You don't necessarily have to be motivated to do it. But anyways, and it's usually about that 6 to 8 week stretch where it's like, what else? Oh, I just saw this new detox on Instagram. Maybe I'll try that.
Yeah, well, it's just where it is, because it is kind of like a honeymoon phase of like you start something new and you're all jazzed up about it until you have that poor night's sleep day where your car malfunctions, your kid is sick, whatever, right? And you just don't want to do it, or you're just tired, or you're just like, oh wait, I have to keep doing this.
Yeah,
I have to keep doing it. I have to like actually keep doing it
forever.
For
like, how long?
Oh, wait a second.
All right.
I'm going back to that lifestyle conversation, right? And I think it goes back, and I think to that having that why is so important, because it is the little anchor that when you know you've got the why, I think it doesn't leave much room else besides to make the choice to move towards it. And then if you don't make the choice, at least you're aware that you're consciously choosing to move away from the thing that you really want.
Right. Definitely. And there are many ways to get there, and I think the why and the intention is the first thing, and then maybe you try bodybuilding and realize you don't like it, but maybe strength training floats your boat, or just doing more like CrossFit style. Like there's many ways to get there, but starting is the most important thing. I just wanted to say, like, to that point where you're like, but then your car breaks down, and then maybe you just have a day from hell and it throws you off. That's why we have to do it on the days where it's just a normal day. If it's just a normal freaking Tuesday, but you're just feeling like you don't want to, you gotta just do it, because you don't know what's coming around the corner, because something is coming. We all got shit. Like,
it's gonna happen.
We're all gonna have a day from hell where it's pouring rain, you get a flat tire, AAA is 4 hours late. I literally just had this day like not too long ago, and and all of a sudden all your appointments are over, and you just spent your whole day in the car. Those days are gonna happen, which is why you gotta do it on a normal humdrum day, whether you feel like it or not, because what we're doing is we're building fitness equity. We're building fitness equity, that you're building up all this equity, so when the inevitable vacation, illness, a day from hell happens, you can tap into that fitness equity, but you still got enough momentum to push you through, where you're not gonna lose too much momentum. But if you're always like, I just didn't feel like it, so I didn't do it, you're just never allowing yourself to build up that equity in your own fitness, so you can weather the tougher days.
I like that, the fitness equity, because the normal days are gonna still have that little voice where you don't want to, but if you don't really have any actual legitimate reason, because maybe the day from hell is a day you take off.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, maybe that's the day where you give yourself a little grace to be like, you know what, today is just not the day. Or you have a tweak in your neck like I did, so I couldn't work out for 2 days. Yeah. And so it's like, all right, I don't really have a choice here for this.
That's the point, right? So then, like, imagine if you would have just rationalized not working out the week before that, because maybe you were busy, you just didn't get.
And then the week before that,
and then you got a tweak in your neck. Then now it's 2 weeks, and now you're out.
Well, and even today I was rationalizing, and and the neck was part of it. I was like, I don't know if I should. Right. It was fine. Yeah. I could have easily not, even though I had the neck, used it as an excuse.
Man, excuses are like assholes.
I don't have one.
For the rest, most people have one.
The genetic anomaly.
All right. Well, before we wrap it up, I wanted to give you something here that I think you might appreciate. Little
that's so sweet
gift here. Random act of nothing kindness.
Random act of nothing. Well, I appreciate it a lot. So he gave me a little placard of the 4 agreements. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just remind ourselves. So the 4 agreements are...
4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word. Yeah, I'll just read I won't read the contents. It'll take too long. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. And then always do your best.
Right? So be impeccable with your word. No gossiping.
Speak with integrity.
No shade.
Yep. Avoid using words to speak against yourself and others.
Yeah. That's a big one.
That negative self-talk.
Yeah. And that could be a lot of the reason why people stop going to the gym. If they didn't see results for a few weeks and they start saying nothing works for me, something's wrong with my body.
Well, they say our thoughts create our reality, right? Everything starts with a thought before it turns into a word, before an action. So if we at least are always shunning ourselves, or being shameful to ourselves, I know I've got negative self-talk. I think we all do, right? So
yeah. I think it's like, listen, that's actually not you talking. Yeah, you're the one witnessing that voice. It's not actually you. And I think that separating yourself and not identifying with that negativity is the first step in creating the awareness around it. So then you can control it, and you can choose to act positively in spite of that voice, and then do the actual thing that you're feeling insecure about until it becomes a superpower of yours. And next thing you know, you've now accomplished the one thing that you've been looking for so long, you know?
Can you look up the first name? I forget the author's.
Oh, Don Miguel Ruiz.
It's okay. I knew that Ruiz was his last name.
Yeah.
So in case you're curious, this is a book I think we've both read many times, but I know I've read it a long time ago, I believe, in high school. And it was a very powerful book in just creating a positive mindset.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yep. The 4 agreements. So I think that's the big
agreements.
takeaway is like you have to master your own mind and and just understand that this negativity spiral strengthens the more you feed it, and it weakens the more you understand it, see it from all angles, and detach yourself from it and understand that you're not that insecure victim that you hear in your head. You're the one that witnesses those voices. And if you can create that awareness, then it's just going to help. You know, obviously we're talking mainly in the context of health and fitness. Obviously we can apply it to everything in life.
Absolutely.
But I believe health and fitness is the nucleus. It's the one thing that right now, immediately, every person in this planet can do something about right now.
Can benefit from and has the capacity to do something about right now.
And then we use that, and then we have a skill transfer from that to other things in our life, right? But the fitness piece has got to be the start, because it's something we can all do right now and we all want. And this is a great little start here.
That's very sweet of you. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. Yeah,
it's always nice to have a little reminder. It's been a while since I've read it.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll end it there.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Nice little treat.
So, hope you guys enjoyed episode 6, and we will check y'all next time for episode 7 next week. Peace out. Bye-bye.
Bye.